Estamos en vivo, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start the show, let's get the business out of the way. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online, ladies and gentlemen, basketball fans, it's that time of year again. The NBA is back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. Bet Online has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. Bet Online has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. And it's just not the NBA. Bet Online has odds on everything from football, Major League Baseball playoffs, NHL to political props. So head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering, Bet Online. The game starts here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I know this is kind of a weird time because we're all excited about the World Series. We're all excited about the matchup of the Dodgers and the Yankees. And we're going to spend time talking about the Dodgers and the Yankees. As you guys can see, the star of Tombstone 2 has joined us on the show. And if you've seen from previous appearances, Eric can predict the future. So I want to give Eric Karros his kudos because the last time he was on the show, he picked he picked the Dodgers to beat the Show Pods. He was the one that calmed me down, even though I was still an idiot, and picked the Show Pods to win that series. So, Eric, take your victory lap. What happened in that series versus the Show Pods? Was it everything you thought, or was there anything that you didn't see coming in that series?
So, it's interesting because going back to that, podcast we had, we talked about the bullpens, right? And you'd mentioned the pod, and I thought the Dodger bullpen was going to be huge. I thought Max Muncy was going to be brilliant. He wasn't, right? He was not. Yeah, I was a series too early, but I don't think the only thing that surprised me was probably Game 3. It was a much closer game than I thought. That was the one where the Padres got out to a 6-1 or 6-0 lead. Then we came back and made it a 1 or 2 run game. I thought that game would be just all Padres. But other than that, like I honestly thought the series went exactly as I had thought it would go. And I was happy it ended the way it did.
And look at us now, ladies and gentlemen. We got the Dodgers versus the Yankees in the World Series. Before we go to the Dodgers and the Yankees, there was a screwball that got thrown at us last night. So, Eric, I do want to get your thoughts on this. Unfortunately, we got the news last night that the great Fernando Valenzuela had passed away. And for all you loyal listeners to this show, you guys all know how important Fernando Valenzuela is to this show and to all of us. So, Eric, your thoughts on Fernando and his passing?
Well, for me, there were a couple different ways I knew Fernando. First, as a kid in junior high school and seeing him pitch for the Dodgers and the craziness of it, right? I think more for me, especially as a kid, it was this guy's not even looking at home plate. He's looking up to the heavens and, he's this boyish kid. He's got the scraggly hair and, the story of being from Mexico, 20 years old and just kind of discovered out of nowhere. So that's the first impression. And I was taken by storm, just like everybody in Los Angeles. And I'm a kid in San Diego, right? The next thing would be, I was actually there the day I was in the clubhouse, the day when the Dodgers let Fernando go in 1991 in spring training. And that was really that was my first experience of realizing that what I was getting into was a job, right? It's a job, no matter what, and they let Steve Garvey go. They let guys go. But that day I still remember Fernando walking back in because he had just had the meeting with the front office and he was cleaning out his locker. Then, obviously he went on to have, maybe, I don't want to say a second career, but he played for a number of years afterwards. We competed. And then I will always remember we had we were still doing the old timers games, right? And Fernando's pitching against me. And one thing, Fernando was always competitive in everything he did. I mean, a hell of a golfer, obviously a pitcher, but he's out there and it's the old timers game, right? Like, let the guy get a hit, let me swing the bat, and he's legitimately out there trying to punch me out. And I remember, he had me down 0-2, and I'm thinking, this son of a gun, he's still, but that was just kind of the playfulness. And then obviously the broadcasting the last few years, always nice, kind of funny, but it is, a lot of people have said, very to himself, right? He was a very private person. And right, we're going to miss him, the Dodger family. But for me, he's in a better place. The way what he was battling with in the last year, it's not for me to say, but I'm going to say it's like that's no way to live. That's Fernando Valenzuela for me is the guy that's looking up to the heavens. He's striking somebody out. He's taking the place by storm. All the that's what I remember. That's what I see. That's what I every time I would interact with Fernando, no matter how what was going on now. For me, he's still Fernando Valenzuela, El Toro, that's who he is. And like I said, yes, it's sad but he's in, like, for me, like how I rationalize it, he's in a better place. And I made a comment that was on a thread with Oral last night. And it's, Tommy needed him to pitch game 1. And that was the calling.
Alicia, coming in.
Yeah, where to start? It's been so emotional. And like my co-host Juan mentioned, Fernando was so important and beyond baseball, and I'm so grateful, Eric, that you understand that, his impact. But because we love him, we don't want anyone to suffer or be in pain. But just 63 seems so young. It's just, and we were golf buddies and lunch buddies, and he was such a prankster and so funny and just so full of life. I'm shocked. Even though we know he was going through things health-wise, he still had that appetite for life, and that's why I'm still reeling from it. Even though we knew it was coming, it's never going to be the same, right, Eric? When we go to the stadium, thankfully Fernando's number 34 has been retired.
Right.
And thank you to this Dodgers organization for doing that while he was still with us,
mm-hmm.
right? While he could receive his flowers. And that was Juan's, he was on it every single day for the Dodgers, pushing. And I think Fernando was very grateful for that. But like you said, Eric, Fernando would never ask for it. But I truly hope that he understood how important he was. I don't think he did. I still don't think he understands his impact, iconic impact, not just baseball. You know what I mean?
Right. No, he certainly, he crossed paths. It wasn't just sports. And for, really, a generation, he was hope. He was, where you could go leave all your problems behind and, just get immersed in Fernando and Fernando mania. And look he introduced, or I should say brought back, a whole demographic of Dodger fans. Like, it's crazy. It's if Fernando doesn't happen, there is a whole cross section of Dodger fans that don't exist. I mean, he changed Dodger fandom.
I just think, it's just going to be different. I wanted to ask you this about Fernando. I know that there are hashtags and stuff going around
mm-hmm.
social media. Win for Fernando.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've never been a professional athlete. Surprise. And you were in the clubhouse. You are still part of broadcasting. You are still, very relevant to the game. You are not just an expert, but a student. I want to know, do teams really get up for that? Like, do teams, when you have someone, especially the younger guys, and I'm not trying to offend anyone, I really just want to know,
So romantically, you're going to say, yes, everybody in that clubhouse is going to do it for Fernando. Reality is the emotion that the players have and all that is going to emanate from the fans. So the fans, which, you have such a cross section, meaning, from age, right? So there are going to be people there that, were kids going through Fernando Mania. There are going to be people that, were adults going through. There are going to be people that have basically no idea about Fernando other than what they've learned, the last few years and his number being retired. So you're going to have all of that. But I think the reality is that in Dodger, with Dodger fans, you're talking about the Koufax, when you talk about, it's Jackie Robinson, it's Koufax. Fernando is, the Mount Rushmore of Dodger players, right? And his impact in the organization. So the fans are going to create that energy. Okay. And that energy will then dissipate onto the field and into the players. But, I'm not going to sit here and say that, right, Andy Pages is, he's going like, we got to do it for El Toro, right? Like he, the only thing he knows is that, Fernando was announced in games earlier this year. That's just the reality of it.
Right.
But as fans and, obviously we won't let anybody forget.
I love that. Juan, love it.
Eric, let's transition. I really thank you for being so candid about Fernando. We're going to talk more about Fernando later on, but we want to get Eric's thoughts on the World Series because whatever Eric says ends up happening. So, Eric, you got to calm me down here because you mentioned the bullpen being important against the show pods. Obviously, this bullpen, to me, as great as Tommy Edman was in the NLCS, that MVP needed to go to the bullpen, but you can't. I don't think you can give an award to a whole bullpen. Right. Can this bullpen continue to do what it's doing? I look at that Guardians series between the Yankees, and even though it only went 5, I felt it was much closer than the NLCS was. And I felt like the Yankees just wore the Guardians down, who up until that point, I would say had a pretty decent bullpen. I mean, the year Class A was having, who knows what happened to Class A? Can they keep this up against a guy like Soto who will just work and you're going to see more and more pitches?
So I think what the Dodgers did against the Mets, it was we trying to win a series. We're not trying to win every game. And the reality is, if you look back, there were some games that I don't want to say the Dodgers punted, but they felt, they could have still, made some moves to try to win that game. And if you're a fan, you're going like, hey, why are they leaving so-and-so in still? Or why are they doing this? Or why are they? And the reality is you're trying to win 4 games. Doesn't matter which 4 you win. You're trying to win 4. And I think the Dodgers, they're going in. There's nobody that's more prepared to attack another team than the Dodgers. And what I mean by that, if you go back to the Mets series, there were only 2 hitters, Pete Alonso and Lindor. Those are the only 2 guys that saw a reliever more than 1 time. Now that didn't just happen. That was by design. So when you try to compare what New York did to Cleveland, well, they were seeing the same guy a couple times in that series. So you do get, I don't want to say you get more familiar. It doesn't mean you're going to have success, but you become more familiar. The Dodgers bullpen and the way it'll be deployed is not just happenstance. There is a reason for everything that is done. You also look at, does Vesia come back? That could be huge because he is not only do you think, okay, maybe he can throw to Soto, which Soto is 0 for 2. There's only 2 out. 0 for 2, 2 strikeouts and a walk, right? So, but we'll take him. We'll take Vesia on that. But he's also neutral. He pitches to righties and lefties. He gets them out the same. The sleeper in all this, if you want to, pull one out of the hat, Ryan Brazier versus Juan Soto. 0 for 5, 3 strikeouts, no walks. So you can say, well, hey, that's not much of a sample size, but there isn't a lot of sample size for any of the guys. But when you're saying 0 for 5 with 3 punch outs and no walks, like for me, that I kind of like that. Kind of like that a lot, actually. And the Dodgers realize it. In the way that they're going to deploy things, I like the Dodgers in 7. I mean, I don't want to, maybe that's a question for, in 10 minutes, but I'm going to say it. I like the Dodgers in 7. It's not going to be, a straight line, as I've said all year long. I think, there's going to be at least 2 games that you're going to probably get frustrated as a Dodger fan. Oh, what are they doing? Wow, what are they doing? But at the end of the day, they win in 7.
Juan,
Alicia,
do you feel better? Do you feel better?
No,
I should because whatever he says happens every time he comes on the show. He said the offseason was going to be nuts, and sure enough, the offseason was going to be nuts. He said they were going to beat the show pods. They beat the show pods. For me,
what's the concern?
The concern for me is, I get it. It's the top half of that Yankees lineup. And if they really make our starters throw those pitches, Eric, look, I know I need to get over it. There's just a new school of baseball, but it drives me insane that these guys are getting, standing ovations for pitching 4 innings. And I'm just like, really? Like starters going 4 innings? That's something that we need to, celebrate now. I just feel like sooner or later, the check is you're gonna have to pay the check. How many times can a bullpen pitch 5 innings a game, 4 innings, like you said it, in the NLCS, right? People thought they punted those games. In game 2, I thought, why aren't they using any of their leverage guys? They got an off day on the next day. They didn't use them in game 1. Try to keep the game close and see if you can steal that one.
So here's what I'll say. Yes, you're right about one of the starters is going to have a game where it's a 6 or 7 inning game. And, we had that in the championship series with Flaherty, right?
Right.
So that's going to have to happen. One of those guys is going to have to do something like that. Ideally, you get 2 of them that, give you, one will give you a 5 inning, another will give you a 6. You have to mix in the off days, right? And just because you throw one day and you get a day off the next, I mean, look, at the reality is some of these guys aren't even built for one day off in between to come back. And I'm talking about the high leverage guys and so that's why, you saw the Max Muncy Honeywell interview where Honeywell, Max is talking about Honeywell and that the reality is, him eating up those innings saved everybody, and it allowed them another day, their arms to, feel a little bit better, because at this point of the year, it's grinding. I will say this, when you talk about the Yankees offense, right? So Stanton, again, some big hits and all that sort of thing, but he only had 4 hits. He had 4 hits the entire series. So yes, he can change things with a swing of the bat, but I do believe that the Dodgers, like I said, you mix the talent with the preparation and the game planning, you're not going to get out game plan. Now, the Yankees could have a great series and, Jazz Chisholm could just go off and, you just don't see that coming, right? But I'm taking the Dodgers. I still think the Dodgers are the best team and they're going to win.
There he goes. He did it again, Alicia. I'm totally falling for the banana in the tailpipe. I believe now. I believe they're going to do this. They're going to pull it off. Come on in, Alicia.
Eric, I just think that Juan is the type of Dodger fan, the Prince of Darkness, we call him. That's how he fans, is by expecting the worst, so that when the Dodgers come through, I think it's like he keeps his expectations low so that he's super impressed when they do something.
Yeah, you know what it is, Eric? It's Tom Niedenfuhr. The ghost of Tom Niedenfuhr.
Cardinals.
Let me tell you, and we had Tom Niedenfuhr on the show. He was a real good sport about it, But I told him to his face, I was like, "You are the name to my trauma." It's when I was a little kid and I saw Jack Clark, and Pedro Guerrero was one of my favorite players. And to see Guerrero throw the glove on the ground, I was like, why did you do that to me? And so, I've seen it happen when Broxton gave up the home run to Matt Stairs that I feel like hasn't landed yet. I'm like, I feel like this is baseball, right? But I appreciate you coming on here, and I'm like I said, I'm falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Go ahead, Alicia.
Okay, I do want to ask something, because again, he's Eric Karros is also part of this broadcast world, and this is me. I am biased. Maybe I'm not speaking for the rest of Bleedlos, but this is something that bothers me to my core as somebody who's also from that broadcasting world.
Okay.
Immediately after the Dodgers win, when everyone else, it's like over 80% of ESPNs and the Fox Sports all picked the Dodgers to lose. They start right away in the in the clubhouse asking Dodgers questions like, oh, what's it going to be like to play the Yankees? Oh, what's it going to be like to face Stanton, like Soto? And I'm just like, we're the Dodgers. I mean, the disrespect. Now, of course, I'm biased. I admit that. But do you? I just don't. I don't
know that.
understand.
I don't know that we have a. And I say we. I'm saying I'm part of the Dodgers, right? I don't know that we have a ton of people rooting for us outside of, the Dodger crew, right? And what I mean by that, it's the way that the Dodgers are perceived. Oh boy, just went out and spent all this money, right? And bought, are buying themselves a championship. And the reality is, you look at, the first 3 pitchers of Game 6 in the, against the Mets were non-Dodgers. You had Kopech, Bonda, and Kasperius. That, I mean, again, that weren't on the roster at the beginning of the year. All, making next to nothing. Tommy Edman, who wasn't even with the ball club, is your series MVP. And the reality is yes, they're look, we do have a high payroll, no question, but that's not what separates us. It's the ability of the front office. It's it's all, I'm going to say it's a 40-man roster. It's not just the guys getting dressed. It's the coaching staff. It's, the minor league development. It's everybody. And the reality, we are the cream of the crop when it comes to organizations in baseball. I mean, everybody wants to be the Dodgers. The way you can knock the Dodgers, oh, well, how many World Series have you won? And that, again, that's a lot of good fortune. But you look at the organization over the last, 10, 12, 13 years, I mean, it's the toast of anyone. So, okay, that's fine. Talk down about the Dodgers and, oh boy, the Dodgers. But we'll see what happens in another week.
One, I think, like the petition to get Fernando's number retired, we should get a petition going to get Eric Karros on that Fox broadcast team, because it is so heavily East Coast, Northeast. I mean, respect to those guys. Okay, tip your cap to the captain. I get it, but there's nothing like east of that. And yet, if you look around our stadium, our fans who travel so well, the talking heads, the suits up there are missing a lot of, I just think, opportunities. I don't know, Eric, I think, would you be interested in that gig?
So I used to do pre and post for the World Series for Fox, but obviously those guys have some better numbers playing wise than I ever did, right? So and it's fun. Remember, it's an entertainment show. That's what it is. I mean, you're not getting. Well, let's just leave it at that. You're getting entertainment. Let's just leave it at that.
But
I will say this:
some balance.
They don't hold a candle to your hair game and your facial hair game. I will say that. Eric,
I don't know. You don't like Big Papi's hair game?
It doesn't
No,
compare. I'm
Not
telling
to
you.
yours.
No,
Your Tombstone 2 look was awesome. I loved it. Before we let you go, I do want to ask you about Freddie Freeman.
Okay.
Because look, for them to do what they did in the NLCS with, Freddie not playing a lot of games, and you see across the way that stacked lineup, and of course you see all the posters. Mm-hmm. It's, Shohei versus Aaron Judge. It's Soto versus Mookie. It's Stanton versus Freddie. Look, seeing this poor guy limp around the field, Eric, I mean, I don't know if you've had an ankle sprain as bad as he had. A week off further into this, is Freddie somebody that you think the week off can help him and he can do major contributions? Or is this something that, they're just going to have to treat it the way they did the NLCS?
Look at he's going to play. I mean, that's his nature. You look at, just historically his career, he's trying to play 162 games every single season, right? He's going to have to be, non-existent to not be in the lineup. Now, is he going to be better? No, he's not going to be better. I mean, he might be better than he was a week ago, but he's not going to be better by any stretch of the imagination. He's doing everything he can. But he is a presence. And so when he steps into that box, it doesn't matter. That's Freddie Freeman. That's Freddie Freeman. And as good an RBI guy as there is, you have to respect that. If you're trying to say, what's the percentage? look, the reality is when he blew up his ankle, that is realistically, that is 6 to 8 weeks. That's 6 to 8 weeks before and even then, and what are we on now? We're on what, 4 weeks, maybe 5. And that's not staying off of it. That's playing and going through stuff. So I think you're going to see more of what you saw as far as how Dave utilizes him. And look, there's something to be said too about, like, look at game 2, you're starting Rodon, a lefty. Like, why wouldn't I possibly have Freddie on the bench and I'm able to deploy him with runners on second and third, and I get to use him as a pin, do I want him in one big spot or do I want him for, and I haven't spoken to him. I don't know how he's feeling this week. But I would bet everything I have that he's going to be in that starting lineup, and he's going to be Freddie Freeman on Friday.
I agree.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. He is the all-time home run leader for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the man predicts the future here, and he's done it again. He made me fall for the banana in the tailpipe. I have hope now going into this series.
Yeah.
Eric, we can't thank you enough for being so gracious with your time and sharing your insight with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. And Alicia, great to finally make it work here.
I'm so happy. Good luck. I know he
right.
brings us good luck. Thank you.
Dodgers in 7. All right. Yes. Bye-bye.
You heard
There
it.
you go. Thanks, Eric. All right, Alicia. So there you have it. Look, I have to say, I mean, he does. I mean, he still believes in that bullpen. Alicia, first of all,
I do too. You have to believe. What's the alternative?
Well, yeah, with the starting pitching, right? I mean, we have to believe on the bullpen.
You're driving me to drink.
So for those of you guys that are in the chat, look, we're going to spend probably a good amount of time talking about Fernando Valenzuela, but probably for the next 15 minutes or so, we're going to talk about the World Series. So, Alicia, I know you were there for a couple of the NLCS games, and I know you already have the hatred going for all those East Coast guys and all the Yankee, love that's going out there. I just want to ask you this. The fact that we have an actual Dodgers-Yankees World Series, like I was too young to really appreciate it in 81. And all my life, all I heard were the Brooklyn Dodgers losing every year to the Yankees. And I just think, I feel for Brooklyn Dodger fan because I feel like there is that connection between the current Dodger fan and that Brooklyn Dodger fan. This current streak that the Dodger fans are going through, it's 12 years in the playoffs and we have one World Series to show for it. Well, this is what Brooklyn Dodger fan was going through in the 50s. Every year the Yankees would come and they would beat them. And that's why they were called the bums. They're a bunch of bums. But there was a period there where, look, I am referring to this matchup for those of you football fans. This is El Clásico, in my opinion. This is El Clásico of Major League Baseball, the Dodgers versus the Yankees. We haven't seen it in over 40 years. Alicia, what do you think of MLB's Clásico?
I agree with you right off the top one. This is it. It is happening. And again, from the broadcasting aspect, I mean, MLB drooling. This is what they would hope for, right? And it's what I wanted, especially because those fans, those Yankee fans, man, I'm hopeful. And unlike Eric, our esteemed guest, I think it's going to be Dodgers in 6. I have had faith in these Dodgers just because they keep coming from behind, right? They're not supposed to be here. So it's different than all the other years that we've been going through this World Series drought. And I heard this comment recently, I think today, about, are you a Kobe guy or are you a Phil Jackson guy? And I know that's NBA. And for all of our younger viewers out there and listeners, Kobe was like, it's about winning. You have to win. And then Phil Jackson was like, it's about the journey. And I'm like, why do we have to choose? Because I'm enjoying all of it. I am eating it up. This is LA versus New York. This is West Coast, East Coast. This is like this is just something that I have dreamed of. I didn't know if we'd ever see it because of the way the postseason has been going. But I feel like now my ex-boyfriend that I got back with in the spring is pulling it together for me. He's finally coming through. He's keeping his promise of doing it for us, for Los Angeles, for Dodger fans across the world. And it's gonna, and one of our viewers here commented about how good it's going to feel when the Dodgers beat the Yankees because of all the hype around the Yankees. And I just want to mention one more time, it really is just annoying to have to hear the adulation over the Yankees and the Yankees players as if the Dodgers aren't the Dodgers. You know what I mean? I mean, this is something else too that I wanted to bring up. You've talked about that drought, Juan, about how long the Brooklyn Dodgers went through it. Okay, we've gone through it. And we've been to the postseason, but winning it all. I get it. But this will be only the second time in history that the Dodgers win the World Series at home. Like that alone is like, it's just Hollywood. We are Hollywood, baby. I'm eating it up. I'm so excited. I can't stop talking with my hands. Beto Duran just called me out on it. Like I need to sit down and I'm just enjoying it. And I want you, I can't wait to get together with you guys to celebrate because I really believe that this is the Dodgers year. And I'm not going to let that East Coast bias, the national East Coast bias, get to me. I know I brought it up because I wanted to hear Eric Karros, and I would love to see Eric Karros on that panel, on that show. I think it would be a great balance, and he knows his stuff, and he's attractive. And my dad even brings up how his great hair. So I'm glad you did, Juan. But I mean, I'm all for it. This is it. We asked for it, and we got it. Dodgers, Yankees, baby. Cheers.
You know, I like that what you brought up, that Phil Jackson versus Kobe, where Kobe's all about winning and Phil Jackson's about the journey. I will say this: I want to combine the two. I'm
Yes.
a big fan of the journey to win because I am telling you this right now. My compadre is a huge Yankees fan. Okay, so I'm not just saying this because my compadre is a Yankees fan, but if the Dodgers lose to the Yankees, it is going to suck. And it's going to suck for all the reasons that you talked about, Alicia. It's going to talk about how everyone look, the Yankees are a national team. You
Yep.
know, now the Dodgers, what's interesting to me is that the Dodgers are becoming a worldwide team,
Yes.
right?
Global.
The Dodgers are an international team. So for me, it's just really gonna suck to lose. Now to beat those guys, especially this year, because Alicia, it's funny because when you said that, I think maybe people would have thought, what do you mean they're not expected to be here? I mean, they built a super team, they spent all this money. I mean, the expectation was for them to be in the World Series. But for them to overcome all these injuries, to basically have only three starters and three starters that, we're surprised if they even get into the fifth inning. That is something that I did not see coming with this team. And my opinion on this team changed in that show pod series. And it was in particular, as Eric mentioned, that game 3 to me in that show pod series, that to me showed the intestinal fortitude of the Dodgers.
Yes.
Because going down 6-1 and then coming back and making a game of it, I don't think the show pods were ever the same after that. They had this look on their face like what is happening. It was like, it was literally, you guys all know I'm part of the Stalloner's Club. I love Stallone. So to me, that was Rocky 4. That was Ivan Drago just punching Rocky, and Rocky taking the punches, and at this point, I think the show pods didn't see. And from that, I was just like, no matter what magic the Metropolitans had their way, the Dodgers the Dodgers were going to go ahead and take them. I knew they were going to win that series.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now, going into this series against the Yankees, what does concern me is that lineup, because at least the top half of that lineup to me mirrors a lot the Dodgers lineup, especially Juan Soto. He takes pitches and he makes you work. What I don't want to see is Buehler have 90 pitches through 3 innings. That is going to be a concern to me. that Flaherty's pitch count goes up high. Like Eric said, I would love for Flaherty to be able to go 7 innings in that first game. I think that would be huge for the Dodgers. It all goes back to Alicia. I just don't want to see them lose to the Yankees. I really don't. Babyface, did I know you picked the Dodgers to win in 3, but anything I mean, what does this Dodgers Yankees World Series mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously, it's that classic World Series, right? That everybody's been waiting for, right? For 43 years, it hasn't happened, right? Since '81. I was pretty young in '81 still, but I still remember. I went to a cousin's house. We were in a room, like a bedroom. I remember winning. When they won that ball, the ball popped up. Kenny Landreau catches it in center field. I vividly remember that memory. So I remember that '81 World Series, and just to me, it's like, wow, this hasn't happened in 43 years. Like when these teams met in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, and then 43 years nothing, and then to finally have it again. I mean, it's classic. Like I see all these people online saying like, oh, this is the worst World Series matchup possible, blah blah blah, and this and that. And like, there's people, the haters, right? That they don't, because it's the big market teams, they don't want to see that, but it's good for the game. It's
so good.
So many eyes are going to be on this, like you mentioned, not just here in the U.S., but like internationally. Imagine the numbers this World Series is going to get in Japan for Shohei Ohtani. I mean, I'm super excited to see this, and I think the Dodgers are going to win. I'm gonna go with 6 right now with everything that's happened, because that game 6, it lands on Fernando Valenzuela's birthday, so they win it out in game 6.
You know what, Alicia? I thought that was a great question that you asked Eric, in terms of, because I saw it immediately after the news broke last night. We got a win for Fernando. Well, do you guys all remember win for Vin?
It
didn't happen. No. So I thought that was a really great question, because look, those guys in that clubhouse, none of them were around for Fernando Mania, and yes, he was a broadcaster for the team. But for those, I mean, Alicia knows him better than the rest of us, but we've been in the press box, Babyface and I, and we know that Fernando's a very private person. Like he was not one of those gregarious, I'm going to go ahead and talk to everybody type of person. Now, he may have had somewhat of a relationship with those guys in the clubhouse, but yeah, like the example that Eric gave of Andy Pajes. I don't think Andy Pajes is going to give a rah sis boom boss speech in the clubhouse and be like, we got to win for Fernando. Or basically he'll say, tenemos que ganar por Fernando. I don't think that's going to happen.
But I do think that that's great that Eric explained. I mean, he's just so good at what he does, Eric. He really does. And he's so casual. We don't ever give our guests the questions we're going to ask. And we could have kept them on another 30 minutes with all of what we wanted to ask them about. But it was really important to me because I see that trending, the win for Fernando. And I love that Eric Karros brought it back around to the fans. He said what I now believe to be true. It's going to be on us to win for Fernando. It's going to be on us to not let his memory go, to hype up the team, to stay loud, to represent, especially in our stadium, the cathedral of baseball that Fernando helped bring to a whole just new audience of baseball players and lovers. And just, I love that he told the truth, that it's on us. I know he didn't say that the players wouldn't be into it, right? But he also was reminding it's on us, it's on the fans. And if you're going to be there cheering, one of these expensive Dodger Yankees games, you better be loud and you better represent for Fernando. And he would love that. I really believe that, again, he doesn't ever ask for anything, but he really does appreciate when he does get, recognized and loved and appreciated. And I think that's a great way that we can honor his memory, is by being the fans that Eric Karros talked about. What do you guys think?
Well, what I think is going to be interesting, because the cheapest ticket, it's over $1,000.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so I've always, like, a friend of mine once said to me, he was like, when you go to a Dodger game, it seems like Dodger fans are waiting for something to happen and then they will go nuts. when you go to other stadiums, it seems like fans are already cheering even before. They're not waiting for something to happen. They're trying to make it happen. What I'm curious to see in this World Series is, will the emotion of Fernando's death, carry from the beginning? Just from the beginning, you're going to see that type of emotion manifest itself. I'm also curious, when ticket prices are over $1,000, what kind of fan is going to be there at Dodger Stadium? Because you have the rah sis boom bah, who's really loud and will cheer, but he can't afford $1,000, right? I mean, $1,000 is a lot of money, for a ticket. So are we going to see casual fan who has a lot of money, a lot of, expendable income, and they're like, hey, I want to go to the World Series because that's the great thing to do? I mean, Alicia, you have something to say on this. What do you
I
think?
just want to, you are correct. And I feel like this World Series is comparable to a Super Bowl where it's very corporate, right? MLB takes over the sales of most of the tickets. MLB takes over what broadcasters get to go in, what media, all of that good stuff. But two things. I believe season ticket holders had the opportunity to purchase tickets. I
Yes.
hope they are there. And I don't know. I don't want to say the second thing and get in trouble. But the first thing, I'll stick with that. I'll say this. At game 6, this game when we closed out the Mets, the last home game with the Dodgers, that was the loudest I've heard the crowd in both series from beginning. It's like we felt like this. We knew it wasn't going to be a game 7. I don't know how to explain it. The vibe was electric, and it felt like it was understood today's the day that we say goodbye to the Mets. Does that make sense? So, I mean, maybe that'll carry over, although I know my friends that I went with won't be there for game 1 because the tickets are too expensive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was there for game 5 of the NLDS against the Show Pods, and I felt right from the beginning the energy was different in that game. And I think it even skyrocketed once Yamamoto got through that first inning. So, yeah, I think obviously an elimination game is going to warrant a different level of energy. But I am curious when I looked at all those. And, Matty, man, just to be clear, these ticket prices are from the secondary market. I don't know how much the actual Dodgers or the Yankees were charged. I know game 3 at Yankee Stadium, the last I checked, was $1,300 just to get in the door. So I don't know like how much they were actually charging their season ticket holders. Next time Carlos the Gambler gets on here, we should ask him, being a season ticket holder.
I am hoping that, there are a lot of transplants here from New York. And I'm just hoping that if there are Dodger fans out there that sold their tickets, because it would probably pay for the next season's ticket, right? Like I get it, especially with the way things are going. I get it. But I just hope you sell. There's some money here in Southern California. You can pull a Dodger fan with money that wants to be there. I'm just saying, I really hope they don't go the SoFi way and sell all your tickets to the opposing team. It's so heartbreaking.
So real quick, I just want to transition to, I think maybe somebody that will probably be there. I think he might be there. Yeah, he's got the connections now, and our old friend, he's going to join us, and we're going to transition to the Fernando talk now. So let's welcome our old buddy Alonso back in.
There he is.
Alonso.
There he is. So
you're on mute. You're on mute. Never changes.
God damn it. Regrettably, I will not be there because I, like an idiot, because of my football job, booked a vacation because of the bye week. So I will be watching from afar, but I'll still be contributing in some capacity with Baseball Isn't Boring. So I fucked up. That's my bad, guys.
And I want to give a real quick shout out, ladies and gentlemen, for you guys who are new. Oh no, what happened to my green?
Oh no, you're green.
What?
What sort of operation are you
running?
You're going to deal with the green. I don't know what happened to my...
That East Coast bias. Just
Bro,
kidding.
bro, the Pacoima office is falling apart. I haven't been gone that long.
Exactly. 2 shows nightly at the Pacoima Hilton. We're just going to go green from this point on. I just want to give a quick shout out for any newbies that we have on the show. Alonzo was him and Babyface were the ones who started the Bleed Loads podcast. Okay, so Alonzo is the OG. Okay, and I want to just congratulate you, my friend, because you have your own show now with Baseball Isn't Boring called West Coast
Yay.
Bias. And you had Gustavo Arellano on the show today talking about Fernando. And that's why we wanted you to join us, because we're going to switch gears now and we're going to talk about Fernando, guys. And I will just preface this before we start. I am going to try my best to try to keep my shit together, because I am very surprised when I heard the news of his passing last night. I have not been able to stop crying since then. And it's fascinating, right? Because I kind of had the same reaction when Vin Scully died. When I was in the movie theater and the movie was over, I turned my phone on and I saw all the notifications that Vin Scully had passed away. And immediately my eyes welled up. And, I never met Vin Scully. I had no relationship with Vin Scully. And the same thing happened with Fernando. I immediately, my eyes welled up, and my wife recognized it, and she immediately came over to me and gave me a hug when I told her that he had passed away. And then the whole night, my eyes were watery. So if I end up breaking down on this show, guys, like, I'm a man, I'm not afraid to cry, but I am going to try to hold it together as well as I can. I am just very surprised at how impacted I am by the death of Fernando Valenzuela. So, Alonso, take it away.
No, and rightfully so. I mean, I feel like the best analogy that I can kind of like conjure, if you will, is that we all lost a Theo, right? Like, we all lost someone that in some capacity was a bridge to something, right? Like Roger had talked about it in the past, that he was a bridge to his dad. Me and my dad bonded over Valenzuela for a long time. And for me, I mean, I didn't have a relationship with him like ADV does or anything like that, but I've met him a handful of times in passing with my baseball journey, having worked in baseball. And every time he couldn't have been any nicer, every single time. And that's a testament to who he was as a person. He was just genuine, sneaky funny guy. Like, if you were around him, my guy was sneaky funny, just like a real ass deal. But just was great to everybody, just super generous with his time, super generous to fans. And there's just no amount of nice words you can put out for him, because Alicia said it best. He didn't want anything from anyone. He was just wanted to stay in his lane and do what he did. And he was a baseball lifer. He loved being in baseball, loved being around baseball, loved talking baseball. And I was lucky enough to meet him through a couple of the Angels connections, Mike Sosha being one of them, and he couldn't have been nicer. And that's how I know Mike Sosha is raza, because him and Valenzuela are homies. They're tight. And that's one of the people I thought of immediately when I got the news. And from there, it was just kind of a list of people of just like, oh no. And his family, of course. I just feel so bad for his family. I can't say it enough. My condolences go out to his family, because whether it's sudden, whether it's illness, whether it's whatever, you're just never prepared for anything like that, because he was only 63. And for me, it's weird because him and my dad are basically the same exact age. They're 8 months apart, something like that. And they're the same age. And my mom, who doesn't know a damn thing about sports, thinks sports are dumb. Like, she, to this day, doesn't understand how I make money working in sports. Just thinks they're dumb, right? And she even knows who Fernando Valenzuela is, and she knew what he meant to La Raza. She knew it all, right? Growing up in LA, if you have a mural in LA, there's a reason you have a mural, right? There, it isn't just because someone, you didn't draw your own mural like you're Juan Ramirez, right? Like, you have a mural for a litany of reasons. And so for me, it's just sucked, because it's like I said, it's like losing an uncle that you've kind of, seen grow about. And I was actually thinking a lot today about that time that we were lucky enough to interview him at Dodger Stadium, and how the Dodgers were rad about it. They They got us in a suite. My buddy Aaron, shout out to the homie Aaron, filmed it all, and he did a great job with it, editing it and everything. And just how just sincere he was. There's just no other way to put it. He was just sincere and genuine, but also generous with his time, and couldn't have been just nicer about it all. Because the thing about Fernando is he hated being in the spotlight. And for him, that was a weird kind of situation where that day, we weren't the only people that interviewed him, right? But I know he was kind of nervous going into it because he hated being the center of attention. And the funny thing is who else is going to be the center of attention if they've retired your damn jersey? Like there's no one else that's going to be the center of attention. And so it's just a sad day for baseball, man. Like I was texting with Dale Murphy earlier today, and I think he faced them the most of any like major leaguer in their career. And he was like, dude, like just human, just couldn't have asked for a better human. And frankly, I need to actually ask him how they communicated, because his English wasn't all that great then. But he just had nothing but nice things to say. And when you have a guy like a Fernando, who is, there's no other way to put it, he's just an icon, right? He's on the Mount Rushmore of the Dodgers. There's so many other kind of descriptors for a guy like that. It sucks, but it was cool because my dad is not an emotional guy. He's Mexican through and through. And as am I, but like he was bummed out. Like I was texting with him and he was bummed out because that was one of the two idols for him, was him and Magic Johnson. And now one of them is gone. And so, and for me, it was tough because he's one of the reasons I picked up a baseball. I'm a lefty, but I don't throw lefty. And everything I was always told in typical Latino form is, hey, you can't be left-handed, like, porque eres de Satanás. And so you have to do everything right-handed. And I remember it vividly when I was like 10, 11 years old. I tried to do the motion like Fernando, where I looked up to the sky and I, raised the arms. It wasn't for me. The ball went like the complete other direction. So it wasn't going to be the move. But for me, man, it's been a tough day. It's been a tough go for Dodger Nation, obviously for his family. And as Gustavo said on the show today, I think it's going to be a litany of emotion game one, right? Because for fans, at least, it's going to be super emotional because we've lost our patron saint, for lack of a better term. And I think, to ADV's point, it is going to be up to the fans to kind of push that prerogative of winning for Fernando. And I don't think that's a bad thing, if I'm honest. I think that's just extra juice in the building. It's extra juice in the series. And I mean, I saw something on Twitter today, like from a Yankee fan, that was like, I mean, it was one of those like, yo, they just lost their saint. We're hosed. Like we're so hosed right now. And so I think all in, it was already going to be a great series. This just adds more element to it.
Said the same thing, Alonso. He's a Yankee fan. He sent me, he's like, I'm really sorry. I know you're really hurting right now, but the Dodgers are winning the World Series now. There's no way the baseball gods would do this to you guys.
No. And for me, you know what? Like,
still worried.
Well, and here's the thing. I think this is going to be a great series no matter what. Originally, I had said it was going to go 7 games, because of cinema, obviously Fernando's birthday being on the date of Game 6. Like, what better way of winning, the next championship in Dodgers lore on his birthday. I mean, I know Fernando would be pissed because he's like, no quiero que me vean ni me pongan atención, but it would just be so ironic that that's how it goes down. But I mean, all in though, man, it's gonna be a great series. I didn't even want to talk shop today, like even on radio. Like there's no point because none of that matters, because from the human element, like we've lost one of the OGs, right? You lost one of the, it's like losing your grandma, right? Like when you think about it, when you lost your abuelita, if you have, that's a gutting feeling because nothing's the same anymore. And that's the only like kind of feeling I can surmise it to, if you will.
Alicia, come on in here. I mean, I know this might be tough, so if I don't want to force you, if you don't want to do it,
No, I want to be what I think he would expect us to be, which is not celebrating, because like you all mentioned, and what I said previously, he never asked for anything. Okay, he really anything or everything he's ever received in life, all of his blessings he earned and he worked for, and he didn't listen to anybody but himself. He stayed very level, you know. He talked about not being superstitious, about how it's like he knew it was on him. And so, and I do love this. I do love that he thinks and believes that Bleed Lows, us, you guys right here, us, this team, had a big part in him getting his jersey retired, his number. And I would I want to be like Fernando. Like, what would Fernando do? And be like, no, no, no. It was a bunch of us. It was, but he just was such a good man and a good family man. And Alonso, I love that you brought up that we have to be thinking about his family right now. You know, his beautiful wife, Linda, who's stood by his side for all these many, very protective till the very end, protective, his wife and family. And so I've been asked to talk about him, and I just can't. I can't because I also don't want to break down on television. I just want to be like Fernando. I want to be like him, and he was very private, and we've all said that before. And he's just a good guy and sneaky funny, super funny, big smart ass, and always quick with his comments. And just a family man, and just very just don't make them like him anymore. And I know that baseball will be the first tier of how we think about Fernando. Like I wrote down in my journal this morning, like, how will I remember Fernando? And it was hard because there are so many layers, but of course the first will be baseball. And so I'm going to honor that here because this is a baseball podcast, but it's just never been done, and it will never happen again. The impact like Fernando Valenzuela. It's just not going to happen. And I know the comparison is Ohtani, and we love Ohtani. His greatness, but it's not the same. We knew who Ohtani was coming over. Fernando, nobody knew who he was. He was literally an unknown young dude who did not look like an athlete. He looked like our tios, right? He looked like my neighbors. He looked like my dad's coworkers. Like, I just don't understand. I just don't want to lose that. I want his memory of his greatness. And again, I'm just sticking with baseball because he was definitely more than baseball, but it's just so impactful. And I've heard some of the tributes to him, and, you know, pobrecitos, like a lot of them don't know because it's generational. And Alonso, I think you mentioned this, or it was Juan. These young people, it's up to us, the fans, to carry his legacy, because some of the broadcasters I've heard just didn't do it justice, in my opinion. And it's not mean, it's not personal. I know they mean well, and I know, but maybe their producers or something should I don't know, do their homework or hire somebody from here, or I don't know. But so I had to stop watching the news, even though I wanted to see the fans loving on him. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I want to just love on the memory of Fernando Valenzuela, love on his legacy and what he did for not just us as a community, as baseball lovers, as gente, but for his family. He was deeply proud and protective of his legacy for his family. And here's one more thing he didn't ask for. Come on, can we all be honest? The Valenzuela brand, I mean, he just didn't ask for things. If it was one of us, oh my gosh, we would have like Netflix series and our own brand of cleats, or I don't know the booze and charter buses. And he just was so big, but he really just did not ask for anything except just to be remembered for what he did, what he earned. And he did that. He did that himself and never asked for anything. And it's just too young. Way too young. He had a lot of golf left in him, man. He had a lot of golf left in him.
He loved golfing. Babyface, come on in here. What do you want to say?
No, I mean, just, you know, Alonso mentioned it, you know, he, like generation, like, yeah, he was that bridge, like I said, to my dad, right? Like in the same way, right? I see a lot of people saying their grandparents, right? Their grandparents were fans of him. This was my dad, and I remember like when we got to interview him at Dodger Stadium, we wrapped it up. I have this book, and I showed it to him. This book that I got. If us old school people remember, schools had those public book fairs, right? And I remember grabbing that book as a little kid, and taking it home, right, and looking through it and whatever, right, and always having that book. And then it probably was in the house for a couple years, right, whatever. And then after, I don't know what happens to it, right? It just kind of disappears, right? Actually, I do remember my dad took it to his work, where he worked. He was a foreman at some little company, right? And his office, like, he didn't really have an office. His office was like the kitchen area. There was like a workbench, lunch table. That's kind of where everybody sat. That's where he would sit. There was a little area where he'd keep like his utensils and stuff, and his magazines and newspapers. And that book was there for a couple years. But after that, I probably didn't see that book for like 20 years, 25 years. My dad passed away in 2016. So a couple days after, right? I'm in their house, my parents' house, and I'm kind of just looking through his bedroom, his dresser. And I open it up, and I pull out the book. I'm like, man, he kept that book for all this time. I had no idea, right? It just showed me how much of a fan Fernando was. I mean, he was of Fernando. I even found in there, he had old newspaper clippings of what Eric Karros talked about the day that Fernando got released. I still have that paper. I took it and I brought it home, and I have it in my stuff of the day that Fernando got released by the Dodgers. So, like, like I said, I showed this and I told him kind of real quick version of that story when we saw him. And now I'm like kicking myself in the butt, like, cause like, I'm like, man, why didn't I tell him to sign this book? But also I didn't want to be that guy too. Like, hey, Fernando, can you sign my book? Right. I didn't want to be that guy, but I know he probably would have done it. But, I kick myself now. Cause like, man, I should have had him sign the book. But yeah, I mean, just, I would see him in the press box, right? And this year I took a picture of him a couple of months ago. He had this really cool jacket it's that picture where he's pitching on the mountain, like you see like this beautiful sunset behind him. It's like on his jacket, right? And I saw him and I'm like, hey, Fernando, can I take that picture of it? And at first he's like, Fernando's like, and then I thought he was gonna say no, like he didn't want me to do it, right? And then okay, take a picture of it. And like so like I took the picture of it front and back, right? And he's holding ball, little ball. And we met him a couple times, but like I know he didn't know my name or whatever, but like I mean I know he recognized me. Like whenever I'd see him, like he recognized who I was. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean just the impact of Fernando, like when we said we wanted to get his number retired, it was never about the baseball stats, right? That's all secondary. It's who Fernando is to LA. That's why he deserved to have his number retired. And now people talk about the Hall of Fame. Yeah, that's the reason why. Yeah, if he gets into the Hall of Fame, it's for the impact that he made on a community, baseball fans, and generation after generation. You still go to a Dodger game 40 years after he made his debut, right? More than 40 years. More than 30 years after he left from the Dodgers, right? You still see Valenzuela jerseys out there. And why? It's because the parents and the grandparents, they've brought it on. When I went to spring training and he would be there, this guy people would go up to him and trying to get autographs, right? How many players that played 40 years ago can still walk around and have that type of impact of people that wanting to go talk to him, right? Not many, right? Not many players could do that. And like I said, that for me, that's what I always remember about Valenzuela.
Yeah, I think that it's a combination of everything that you guys said, the family aspect of it and how it was united. I think we cannot lose sight of the cultural aspect of what was happening in Chavez Ravine and the fact that there were a lot of Mexicans that were displaced to build that stadium, and here comes this Mexican to bring them all back, so to speak. And look, there are still a lot of people who hold on to that resentment and aren't fans of the Dodgers. But one of the things that was fascinating to me is when the news broke yesterday, I called my dad to tell him, and I said, hey, did you hear? And he's like, no. And I was like, Valenzuela died. And my dad got quiet. And my dad is not the kind of person who shows emotion. The extent of my father's emotion is either being pissed off or laughing. There's no in between. And he got quiet. And then he said the typical response that my dad always gives and that most Mexican men give, which is, pues ni modo, ¿qué vamos a hacer? Which is, what are we going to do? And I knew he was sad. And what I didn't realize, what I didn't know was because as a kid, the reason why I'm a Dodger fan is because of Fernando Valenzuela. And back then, Dodgers home games weren't televised. So my dad would get home from work, he would pull out the boombox, and we would listen to Jaime Jarrín call Fernando Valenzuela's games. And I would sit next to my dad and we would listen to the radio. And so that's my childhood. That's the reason why I'm a Dodger fan. So I don't know if my dad was sad because he lost memories or if he was sad because he knew what this meant to me, because he has that image of his son being such a huge Dodger fan because he saw a Mexican guy. And that's why, to me, it's fascinating because he brought the Mexican and the Mexican American world together. It was the Mexicans who were watching this guy pitch and their children who were born in this country were watching this. For the longest time, I always identified as a Mexican because my parents were Mexican. And then that's when I realized, well, I'm an American too. So I'm Mexican American. This morning, my mother called me to be just like how sad it was, that Valenzuela passed away. And I could tell that she was upset. But again, it was one of those things where really my mom, I think, was just calling to check up on me because she knew how important he was for me. My sister made a post this morning. She shared a picture of Valenzuela, and my sister says, that's the reason why my brother is the biggest Dodger fan. And it's amazing how all this family sticks together, and it's all brought together by a guy who was put in this position that he didn't ask for it. When we interviewed him, I asked him, I was like, how can you be aware of this pressure that's being put on you, that you are up on a pedestal? People are looking up to you because of your success, because he was an immigrant. He was an immigrant when he came into this league. So when I hear all these people, it's so fascinating to me that it's all about family. It's all about family. And no matter how many, new fans Ohtani brings to the game, and I see Japanese people, I think, are literally coming from the airport carrying suitcases and checking it in the parking lot at Dodger Stadium. I will always say this, no matter how many more. The Dodgers put a whole wall of Japanese players out in the pavilion. I don't know if anybody has seen this, but in the back, they can. I get it. They are playing to that crowd. They want to bring in those fans. They can do that all they want. Dodger Stadium and Dodger fans are gonna be Latinos, and they're gonna be Latinos because of Valenzuela. And that, as Roger said, that is the legacy. Our friend Brian Kirkpatrick, I don't know if you saw this, Alonzo, he put a tweet out, and this is a Rockies fan. He is not a Dodgers fan. Advocating
Ryan Kilpatrick.
Ryan, I'm sorry. Advocating for Valenzuela to be in the Hall of Fame because of his contributions, not because of his stats, but because of his contributions. This is the second largest market. And now this team is more popular probably than any team in Major League Baseball. I don't think we can lose sight of the fact that Valenzuela was the one who started this wave, and it built on this wave. And that's the reason why you still see Valenzuela jerseys being rocked. And I think you will continue to see Valenzuela jerseys being rocked. You guys want to add anything else?
Yeah, I would just add that, no matter how much time passes, right? In my opinion, that's still the place that Valenzuela built, right? Even if Ohtani goes off, Ohtani is the Babe Ruth of this era. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Like, when it's all said and done, that dude's going to be the best of this era. even if Otani does all of that, it's still Valenzuela's legacy is going to dwarf what Otani's done. I'm like candidly, because what Valenzuela has done, I mean, that's just something that just doesn't happen. It just to gente, to raza, to cultura. I mean, again, it's a whole different animal. Like, and what Otani's a special player. He's a special person. It's a special era. But what Valenzuela did around that time, I mean, to Roger's point, I mean, it's been 40 something years since that time. I mean, Nomo played there 20 plus years ago. You don't really see Nomo jerseys around, right? And that was a special player. That was a special time. Mike Piazza, who Juan Ramirez hates, special time, special player. You don't see Piazza jerseys all over the place, right? And so there's a laundry list of guys.
Also, not only that, but they're rocking Valenzuela jerseys when there was a time you couldn't get a Valenzuela jersey.
Yeah.
They were making Valenzuela. Everything you saw there was all chueco.
Yeah,
it was pirata. Fans getting, it was a puro pirata, right? Because people wanted to rock Valenzuela. Alicia?
Mine is a bootleg.
my,
my original Valenzuela. And the first time I wore it in front of Fernando, he was like, "That's cheap." Like
the letters are like 10 sizes too big going across their back.
I had to bootleg it. No, it was a woman at the stadium who wasn't supposed to make it for me, but she was rushing, and it was a kid's. Like I bought a youth one because I'm shorty, and so she put Valenzuela 34, and she was like, "Okay, get out of here." Like she made it, and she wasn't supposed to. He owned his name.
You couldn't do that. You couldn't do that at the stadium.
But I was proud of it, and he was like, "That's cheap," and I was like,
Has the statute of limitations passed, or should we narc her out? I think we should narc her out.
No, it was so many, like 2010 or something.
Diga no la piratería.
See,
I was at ABC, and I was there early to cover something, so no one was up there. That's why she was able to do it. It was empty, and I just dipped in, and homegirl to homegirl.
Well, I mean, again, it's the lengths that people will go to rock a jersey, yéndole a la piratería. And so it's a testament to what it is, right? And it's crazy too. Like I was thinking about this because Gustavo actually got me thinking about this when he said that there's kids now, or people now, even adults now, that the way that they kind of learn about Valenzuela was like YouTube, right? Like they're looking at old highlights or whatever. And listen, what he did in 1981, that 8-game stretch, honestly, I don't think we're ever going to see anything like that again, like straight up. And I mean, even what he did in the World Series.
Well, hopefully we'll see them beat the Yankees again.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying his stretch, like his individual stretch of 8 games, 8 starts, 8 complete. I mean, they were complete games. His ERA was, I think, 0.59 at the end of that 8-game stretch. Flirted with a no in that 8th start. Like it's one of those where you're just not going to see something like that again. And even what he did in the World Series, he got rocked in his start in game. I think it was game 3. He got rocked. Shit kicked in. But he still pitched a complete game, and they still managed to win that game. That doesn't happen now, right? Like if you're getting rocked like that, vámonos cabrón, pa fuera. And that was how special that time was. That's how special Fernando was. He had the stuff, he had the charisma, he had all of that already mixed in. And I mean, and Grant and Tommy Lasorda was a hard ass, right? Like he was a red ass, hard ass that would be like, "Hey, you're not giving me the ball. Fuck you. I'm going to take the ball from you." And he rode that horse, and that's just a testament to how special that was, and we're just not going to see that again. Sorry, ADV, go ahead.
Oh no! I love hearing the olds because I was fortunate to hear some of those. Just he didn't ever call out one player or anything, but Fernando did make comments about today's pitchers only going so many innings, 5, like and then I think I heard a former player, I don't know if I want to say, again, I'm like always, don't get in trouble. But a former player that was on the team with him, I overheard him say how if Fernando had played in today's era, he would be in the Hall of Fame because they would have protected his arm and he would have just kept the good numbers instead of the way, like you just mentioned, Lasorda rode him like a horse, like just the way teams use pitchers back then. I mean, Koufax is another victim. I'm not saying it was just Fernando, but that it is a different era.
A lot of guys.
So and this argument was about getting Fernando in the Hall of Fame. Like, this was a player who played with Fernando was saying that he thinks that he also believes that Fernando should be in the Hall of Fame for impact, but to also use the numbers and like kind of translate them to today. He gave a very compelling argument. I'm not number driven, so I should have wrote him down, but he kind of fixed it for all of us, how if it was today's game Fernando was playing in, he would be in the Hall of Fame.
You know what I thought about today, Juan? And I thought about you when this came across the brain. Remember when we interviewed the homie Dale Murphy and he was completely oblivious to the fact that his number was not retired?
Yeah.
He had no idea. He was just like, wait, what? Like that's not a, that hat, like he thought we were ribbing him.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, man, the number is not retired. And he's like, that is a shame, because that's a guy that is the epitome of an era that he played in, right? I mean, they were all gamers. They were all dogs. You know, they talk about now that I have that dog in me. A lot back then, in order to play in the show, you had to be a dog. Otherwise, it was dog eat dog, and you just weren't going to last. And I hope that the Baseball Hall of Fame will seriously consider enshrining him in some capacity for the impact that he's had on the game, because there's a lot of other guys that you can talk about like that. Not just Fernando. There's other guys that are out there that have done some of the things that he has, just not to the same level, right? But he's a unique circumstance where you absolutely should. That's a guy that you have to enshrine, in my opinion. Josh Rawitch, if you're listening, I'm going to text you and I'm going to remind you of this. But that's the president of the Baseball Hall of Fame. But I mean, it's funny when you like kind of look back and you think about a bunch of different things. Like, I wasn't even alive for Fernando. I wouldn't even have thought. I was born in 1986. But my dad would just vividly tell these stories. And to your point, Juan, that's the stuff that I remember is my dad talking about how, you know, he'd look up to the sky and he'd throw I forget the way that my dad would describe the screwball, but it wasn't the screwball in English. It was just some random broken Spanish trying to describe it. And it's just those stories that get passed down, right, from generation to generation. And that's when you know you have a special guy, you have a special talent. And I'm going to miss him. I mean, that's just what it is. It sucks. And I know Juan's going to miss how he smells, because he pointed that out when we interviewed him, that he smelled like a Theo. And that wasn't untrue. He smelled fantastic.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. I need to bounce, guys. I have a heart out, so I'll let you guys finish up the show. But Alonzo, it was good seeing you again.
Good to see you too, my friend. And hey, keep your head up. It's okay to be sad.
Juan, we'll go ahead and wrap it up and end it. I think Alicia has to go too. So
okay. So that's going to do it for this episode. Sorry, guys, that we wrapped it up so quickly. But anyways, any new people, please make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. And hit that notification button. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. Nos vemos, everybody.